My father's voice boomed through the microphone, cutting through the gentle clinking of champagne glasses. And now for the most beautiful wedding gift of all. Morgan will be giving her sister the penthouse. The words hit me like ice water. 200 faces turned toward me, smiling and applauding, while I stood frozen near the chocolate fountain, a strawberry halfway to my mouth. Then, from the back of the hall, a stranger in an expensive suit stood up. "Touch her assets again, and you'll lose yours." The hall fell silent. Even the wedding band stopped mid-note. I'm Morgan Cross, and I'm 29 years old. 3 years ago, I bought my dream penthouse after working myself to the bone since college. While my friends were at happy hours, I was pulling 18-hour days, building my reputation as one of the most sought-after tech consultants in the city. That penthouse wasn't just an apartment. It was proof that the family disappointment could make something of herself. Before I continue, I want to thank you for being here with me today. Drop a comment and let me know what time it is where you are. Your support means everything to a girl who just wanted to eat her chocolate strawberry in peace. Standing there, in my sister Bethany's wedding reception, wearing the bridesmaid dress she'd picked specifically to make me look like an eggplant, I couldn't help but laugh internally. My father, Richard Cross, stood at the microphone in his rented tux, proud as a peacock. The same man who'd told me at 18 that I was wasting my time with all that computer nonsense was now trying to give away the one thing I'd bought with that nonsense. Behind him, his collection of gold watches glinted in the light. Fake gold, of course, but he'd never admit it. The man had champagne taste on a beer budget, which explained why he was always dipping into my champagne. The stranger who'd spoken was something else entirely. Tall, early 40s maybe, with the kind of presence that made people straighten their backs. He walked toward the front of the hall with the confidence of someone who'd never had to ask permission for anything. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," he said, his voice carrying without the microphone. "Property transfers require consent, not ambush." My sister Bethany, resplendent in her third wedding dress, yes, third, she'd returned the first two for store credit, giggled nervously. "Oh, Morgan doesn't mind. She's always been so generous with family." She shot me that look, the one that had worked since we were kids, the look that said, "Play along or you're ruining everything." The same look she gave me when she needed my college savings for her first failed business, or my car for her cross-country spiritual journey that ended in Tucson when she ran out of gas money. My father cleared his throat into the microphone, creating that awful feedback sound. "Morgan knows family comes first. She's always understood that. Haven't you, sweetheart?" The condescension in his voice could have curdled milk. This from the man who'd missed my college graduation because Bethany had a nail emergency. A nail emergency. "Actually," I heard myself saying, my voice surprisingly steady, "I don't recall agreeing to give away my home. Must have missed that family meeting. Was it scheduled between the time you borrowed my emergency fund for Bethany's meditation instructor training, or after you needed my credit score to co-sign her apartment lease?" The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Good. Let them squirm. Aunt Martha, already 3 mojitos in, cackled from her table. "Tell him, Morgan. Tell him about the soap business." "Ah, yes, Bethany's organic soap venture. $10,000 of my money turned into bars that smelled like low tide at a fish market." The stranger found an empty chair at my table and sat down, pulling out his phone with the casual air of someone settling in for a good show. "Please," he said to me quietly, "don't let me interrupt. This is fascinating, but I should explain how we got here. 5 years ago, I was working 3 jobs, tech consulting during the day, freelance coding at night, and weekend shifts at a boutique hotel downtown. Every penny went toward my dream of owning my own place. Not renting, not sharing, owning. Meanwhile, my parents funded Bethany's 5th career change. After the soap came the meditation app that somehow played Norwegian death metal instead of whale sounds, then the vegan food truck that she forgot to mention she didn't know how to cook for, then the jewelry line made from ethically sourced materials that turned out to be spray-painted aluminum foil. Each time, the conversation was the same. "Morgan, you're so good with money. Bethany just needs a little help. You know how creative types are. Creative. That's what they called it when she spent her business loan on a trip to Cabo because she needed to find her entrepreneurial spirit in the waves. My father had spent weeks before the wedding telling everyone how generous I was being. Morgan's gift will be announced at the reception, he'd told people, building it up like I was Oprah about to give everyone a car. The sick feeling in my stomach told me he'd already made promises he expected me to keep. He'd done this before, volunteered my services, my money, my time, then acted shocked when I wasn't thrilled about decisions I never made. You know, the stranger said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, I find it interesting that someone who owns multiple Rolexes, needs their daughter to provide housing for their other daughter. He held up his phone, showing my father's Instagram. This post from last week shows quite an impressive collection. I've been researching potential recruits for 6 months, Miss Cross. Your father's social media was enlightening. My father's face went red. Those are investments. Investments in what? Aunt Martha called out. Looking like a used car salesman, the stranger extended his hand to me. Alexander Reed, I run Reed Technologies. Your reputation precedes you, Miss Cross. My research team has been thorough. We even have mutual connections at the Marriott Tech Conference last year. Though I had no idea you came with such colorful entertainment, Bethany, sensing the attention shifting away from her, grabbed the microphone. This is my wedding day. Morgan, stop being selfish. Her new husband, Jake, stood beside her, looking increasingly confused. Poor Jake. He was number 3, or was it 4? I'd lost count. He seemed nice enough if you ignored the fact that he'd fallen for Bethany's fantasy world, where she owned properties and ran successful businesses. Selfish. I stood up, my eggplant dress swishing dramatically. Let me tell you about selfish. Selfish is telling everyone I'm dying to live in a studio apartment so you can have my penthouse. Selfish is planning this ambush for... How long, Bethany? When did you and Dad cook this up? She had the grace to look away. It's not like that. 3 months, my father interrupted. We've been planning the announcement for 3 months. We wanted to do it right. Get papers ready so you could sign them here. Make it official. The papers are right here. He pulled out a folder from behind the podium. Alexander laughed. Actually laughed. Did you really think she'd sign away a $2 million property because you announced it at a wedding? What was the plan here? Peer pressure? That's when Bethany made her first mistake. She smirked. Just a little, but I caught it. Morgan always caves. She can't stand letting family down. Is that right? I said, walking toward the microphone. Should we tell these nice people about all the times I've caved? Like when I caved and gave you my car, which you sold? Or when I caved and paid for your wedding to Todd. Remember Todd? Who turned out to be married? Or my personal favorite, when I caved and let you live with me for 6 months, and you turned my home into an Airbnb while I was at a conference? The wedding photographer, bless his entrepreneurial heart, hadn't stopped shooting. This is better than the reality show I worked on last month, he muttered, switching to video mode. My father grabbed the microphone back, his fake Rolexes jangling. Morgan Cross, you will not ruin your sister's special day with your jealousy. Family takes care of family. Really? I said, my voice carrying across the silent hall. Then where was family when I was eating ramen for 2 years to save for a down payment? Where was family when I was working 18-hour days building my business? Oh, wait, I remember. Family was at Bethany's 4th wedding planning party. Alexander stood up, commanding attention without saying a word. He started reading from his phone. Richard Cross, according to public records, you've filed for bankruptcy twice. Your house is mortgaged to the hilt. Your car is leased. And yet you're wearing what you claim are $40,000 in watches. He looked up. Either those are fake or you've been hiding assets from your creditors. Which would be fraud? The crowd gasped. Wedding drama was one thing, but potential federal crimes? This was better than dessert. How dare you, my father sputtered. You don't even know us. My team knows enough from due diligence, Alexander replied smoothly. I know Morgan Cross turned down 3 Fortune 500 offers last year to stay independent. I know she volunteers teaching coding to underprivileged kids every Saturday. The same Saturdays you claim she ignores family gatherings. I know she's been sending you monthly checks for 2 years, listed as consulting fees to help you save face. I stared at him. How did he know about the checks? Bethany, never one to be outdone, started fake crying. It was fake because she'd had her tear ducts partially paralyzed with Botox last month, another expense mysteriously charged to my credit card. Jake, Are you going to let them ruin our wedding? Jake, poor confused Jake, finally spoke up. Bethany, you told me Morgan was giving us the penthouse as a wedding gift. You said she offered. You showed me texts. She did, Bethany insisted. She's just being dramatic now. Aunt Martha stood up, swaying slightly. Oh, honey, that girl's been dramatic since birth. Remember when she pretended to have cancer to get out of Morgan's high school graduation? The hall went silent. Even I hadn't known about that. That was a misunderstanding. My mother finally chimed in. Standing from her seat where she'd been hoping to stay invisible, the doctor said it could have been cancer. The doctor said it was gas, Aunt Martha shot back. Really expensive gas that cost Morgan her graduation party fund. The wedding photographer whispered to his assistant, "Are you getting all this? This is going viral for sure." My father, desperate to regain control, played his last card. "Morgan, if you don't do this, you're out of the family. No inheritance, no holidays, nothing." I laughed. Actually laughed. What inheritance, Dad? The fake watches? The house you mortgaged 3 times? Or maybe Bethany's collection of failed business plans? I turned to the crowd. You want to know the best part? For the last 3 months, my parents have been living in my penthouse. They lost their house 6 months ago to the bank, hid it for 3 months, then moved into my place while I was away on business. The revelation hung in the air like a bad smell. Even Bethany looked shocked, which meant she hadn't known about that part. "We were just keeping it safe," my mother protested weakly. "Safe from what? Its owner?" I pulled out my phone. Should I show everyone the security footage of you hosting dinner parties there? Or maybe the one where Dad's poker buddies came over? Alexander leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying himself. "This gets better and better. Please, don't let me interrupt. Though I should mention, unauthorized occupancy of someone else's property is called squatting. And in this state, it's a felony if you've been collecting any form of payment or benefit from it." My blood went cold. "What kind of payment? If you're still with me through this absolute circus, I need you to know that people like you give me strength. You're the family I choose, not the one I was stuck with. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever been the family ATM, hit that subscribe button. Let's build a community of people who know their worth. And please share where you're watching from. I promise my family drama is universal." Alexander stood up and walked to the microphone. My father tried to block him, but Alexander just smiled. "Mr. Cross, I suggest you sit down. What I'm about to share affects everyone here who might have been convinced to invest in your latest scheme." "What scheme?" Jake asked, his voice cracking. "Bethany, you said your dad was a successful entrepreneur. The one where you've been collecting rent on Morgan's penthouse," Alexander said simply. $15,000 a month from a tech executive who thinks he's renting from Morgan directly. He's a colleague of mine. Mentioned the great deal he got on a cross property. Imagine my surprise. You've been cashing checks made out to M Cross Property Management. The room exploded. Everyone started talking at once. My best friend Lisa, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, stood up with her phone in hand. "I've been recording everything," she announced. "Every word. Morgan asked me this morning to document everything when she saw the setup for the announcement. And before anyone asks, this is a one-party consent state." Lisa was a corporate lawyer, the kind who made grown CEOs cry in boardrooms. She'd been my friend since college, the only person who'd believed in me when I said I'd make something of myself. She walked over in her stunning emerald dress. She'd refused to wear the eggplant monstrosity and handed me a folder. "Your building security sent these over when I requested them this morning," she said. "Your parents have been subletting your penthouse for 3 months. They've collected $90,000 total. Spent $30,000 already, but $60,000 is still in the account. That's fraud, theft, and about 6 other crimes I can name. Oh, and Bethany," she turned to my sister, "you're listed as the property manager on the rental agreement." Bethany's face went white under her spray tan. I didn't. Daddy said Morgan knew." "Daddy says a lot of things," I replied. "Like when he told Jake's family that you own 3 properties and a successful PR firm." Jake's face was a journey of emotions. 3 properties. You said the penthouse was just one of your investments." "It is," Bethany squeaked. "I mean, it will be. Morgan's giving it to me." "No," I said firmly. "I'm not. And let's clear something else up while we're at it. That PR firm you supposedly run? It's 3 Instagram accounts with bought followers, the yoga studio you claim to own. You're banned from it for never paying your membership fees. The charity you started, it was shut down for never filing proper paperwork. The wedding photographer had switched to a second memory card. His assistant was live streaming on TikTok. Somewhere in the corner, a cousin was definitely posting this on Reddit. Alexander returned to his seat beside me and showed me his phone. The tenant, he's a friend of mine, actually. I asked him to rent your place when I heard it was suddenly available. Wanted to see if your family would do the right thing and tell you. The checks, the lease, everything. We have copies. You set them up? I asked, stunned. I gave them the opportunity to do the right thing, he corrected. They chose this. My mother started crying. Real tears, unlike Bethany's attempt. We just needed somewhere to stay. Our house, we lost it. The bank took it 6 months ago. We lived with my sister for 3 months, but she kicked us out. So you stole from me instead? It's not stealing from family, my father roared, finding his voice again. Everything you have is because of us. We raised you. Aunt Martha snorted so loud it echoed. Richard, you missed half her childhood because you were too busy pouring money into Bethany's pageant career. Remember? The one that ended when she got banned for putting hair remover in another girl's shampoo. That was never proven, Bethany protested. You live-streamed it, 3 people said in unison. Jake sat down heavily in a chair, his head in his hands. The texts you showed me, were they fake? Bethany's silence was all the answer he needed. I should have known, Jake muttered. You were so insistent on the prenup to protect your assets, but you never wanted to discuss specifics. The tension in the room was so thick you could cut it with a cake knife. Speaking of cake, it stood in the corner, a 5-tier monstrosity that cost more than most people's rent. I wondered who'd actually paid for it. Probably me, somehow. These things always traced back to me. Alexander leaned close and whispered, How are you so calm? Because I knew this day would come, I replied. The day when the truth would be too big to hide. I just didn't expect it to be this public. My father tried one more time. Morgan, think about what you're doing. You're destroying your family. No, Dad. I'm just refusing to be your ATM anymore. I stood up, smoothing my terrible dress. And just so everyone's clear, I'm not the one who destroyed this family. You did that when you decided I existed solely to fund Bethany's fantasies. You did that when you stole from me. You did that when you turned me into the family joke while spending my money. The wedding band leader raised his hand tentatively. Should we play something? Play Gold Digger, Aunt Martha shouted. It's thematically appropriate. The band leader looked mortified, but his drummer started the beat before anyone could stop him. That's when Bethany completely lost it. She grabbed the wedding cake knife and, well, let's just say the cake didn't survive. It exploded in a shower of fondant and lies, because as we all discovered in that moment, it was mostly styrofoam. Only the top tier was real cake. Even the cake is a fraud? Jake asked, his voice hollow. What else did you lie about? The answer to that question would have to wait, because that's when my father made the biggest mistake of his life. He lunged for the folder Lisa was holding, the one with all the evidence. What happened next changed everything. My father's lunge for the folder was intercepted by Alexander, who moved with the grace of someone who'd probably done martial arts in some expensive private school. The folder went flying, papers scattering across the dance floor like expensive confetti. That's when everyone saw them. The forged signatures, the fraudulent lease agreements, and worst of all, a power of attorney document with my name on it that I'd never signed. You tried to forge power of attorney? Lisa's voice could have frozen hell. That's a federal crime, Richard. That's FBI territory. You needed this as backup when the guilt trip didn't work? The band had stopped playing Gold Digger halfway through. Even they knew this had crossed from family drama into potential prison time. It's not forged, my father protested, but his voice cracked. Morgan signed it. She just forgot. I forgot signing away control of my entire life? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just like I forgot agreeing to give away my penthouse? Just like I forgot authorizing you to rent it out? How much forgetting do you think one person can do? Alexander picked up one of the scattered papers. This is interesting. According to this, you've also taken out a loan against Morgan's Penthouse, $75,000 from a private lender. More reasonable than $100, but still fraud. He looked at me. Did you know about this? The room started spinning. That's impossible. You can't take a loan against property you don't own. You can if you have power of attorney, Lisa said grimly. Forged power of attorney, but these lenders don't always check thoroughly. Bethany, covered in real cake from her demolition of the top tier, tried to salvage the situation. Morgan, please, we can work this out privately. Think about Jake and me. We're just starting our lives together. With my money, I said, in my home. Built on lies, you told him. I turned to Jake. She told you she was successful, right? That she had money? Let me guess. She said she was being modest by having a small wedding. Jake nodded mutely. She said she didn't want to overshadow her sister by showing off her wealth, said the prenup was to protect her trust fund. Aunt Martha cackled so hard she snorted mojito out her nose. Bethany's trust fund? Oh, honey, Bethany's so broke she returns wedding gifts for cash before writing thank you notes. That's enough, my mother shrieked. You're ruining everything. Everything was ruined the moment you decided to steal from me, I replied. But you know what? I'm done being angry. I'm done being the family bank. And I'm done pretending this is normal. I turned to Alexander. That job offer you mentioned, is it still on the table? Alexander smiled. Actually, it's gotten better. My company just acquired a major competitor. We need someone to head the entire tech division. 7-figure salary, signing bonus, and stock options. Interested? The number made everyone gasp. Even the photographer lowered his camera. 7 figures? Bethany squeaked. But you said you'd always take care of family. I did, I replied. I have. For years. But taking care of family doesn't mean enabling theft and lies. I looked at Alexander. I accept. When do I start? Monday, if you can manage it. We'll provide temporary corporate housing until you sort out your penthouse situation. He pulled out a tablet. We can actually complete the contract now if you'd like. Make it official. My father found his voice. You can't just leave. What about us? Where will we live? I suppose you'll have to figure that out, I said, taking Alexander's tablet. The same way I figured things out when I was 18, and you told me college was a waste for women. We'll be homeless, my mother wailed. No, you'll be accountable, Lisa corrected. There's a difference. And speaking of accountability, the tenant in Morgan's penthouse needs to be notified that his lease is fraudulent. He'll need to leave immediately. But he paid for 6 months up front, my father protested, then realized what he'd admitted. So you stole $90,000, Lisa calculated. 60's still recoverable, but $30,000 is gone. That's still grand larceny. The wedding guests were riveted. Someone's +1 was definitely a reporter because I could see her furiously typing on her phone. I signed the contract on Alexander's tablet, my hand steady despite everything. There, done. The moment felt surreal. I was signing $1 million contract at my sister's wedding reception while she stood there covered in cake. Jake finally stood up. I want an annulment. The room went silent again. Bethany's jaw dropped. What? Jake, baby, we just got married. To someone who doesn't exist, he said sadly. The woman I married owns properties, runs a business, comes from a wealthy family. You're none of those things. You're a fraud, Bethany. A beautiful fraud, but still a fraud. But I love you, Bethany cried, and for once, she might have been telling the truth. You love the idea of me, Jake replied, the successful surgeon with the trust fund. But here's the thing. I don't have a trust fund. I have student loans, massive ones. I thought we'd be a power couple, building our empires together. Instead, I find out your empire is built on your sister's credit card. The wedding photographer caught it all. The moment Bethany realized she'd been playing herself. She'd married Jake for money he didn't have, just like he'd married her for success she'd never achieved. It was almost poetic. Alexander cleared his throat. If I may make a suggestion, Morgan, we could have our legal team handle the penthouse situation, prosecute for the fraud, recover the stolen funds, evict the current tenant with proper compensation for his trouble. Clean slate. That's generous, I said. It's practical, he corrected. I can't have my new division head dealing with family drama. Bad for productivity, he smiled. Plus, I have a feeling this story is going to make the news. Might as well have the narrative be about a successful woman standing up to exploitation. My father, desperate now, played his final card. Morgan, your grandfather's inheritance. If you're not part of this family, you don't get anything when he passes. I laughed. Really laughed this time. Grandpa already gave me my inheritance 2 years ago. He said he wanted to see me enjoy it, not watch you all fight over it when he died. He knew exactly what you were, Dad. He told me to never let you know about the money. How much? Bethany asked, her voice small. Enough, I said simply. Enough to know I never needed any of you. The band leader, who'd been watching this unfold like everyone else, asked tentatively, should we play the father-daughter dance song? Play Hit the Road, Jack, Aunt Martha suggested. Or take the money and run. Bethany, covered in cake and tears, real ones this time since the Botox only affected certain parts, grabbed the microphone one more time. You're all judging me, but you don't understand. You don't know what it's like to have a perfect sister who everyone compares you to. Perfect? I asked incredulously. Bethany, you were the favorite. You got everything, the pageants, the cars, the funded business ventures, the multiple weddings. How was I the perfect one? You never failed, she screamed. Every stupid thing you touched turned to gold. Do you know how hard it is to be the family screw-up? You weren't a screw-up until you decided to be, I said. You could have succeeded at anything if you'd actually tried instead of waiting for someone else to do the work. Jake, meanwhile, was on his phone with someone. Yes, I need information about annulment procedures. We've been married for approximately 3 hours. Yes, I'll hold. My mother, seeing everything crumbling, tried emotional manipulation. Morgan, I'm your mother. I carried you for 9 months, and I've carried this entire family for 9 years. I shot back. I'd say, we're more than even. The wedding photographer's assistant held up her phone. We're trending on Twitter, #Penthouse wedding. Great, Bethany moaned. My wedding is a meme. Actually, the assistant continued, people are on Morgan's side. Someone started a GoFundMe for your therapy bills. Not money, just therapy recommendations. Alexander laughed at that. The internet remains undefeated. He turned to me. You know, we should probably get you out of here. This is about to become a circus. He was right. I could see guests pulling out their phones, probably calling everyone they knew. By tomorrow, this would be everywhere. My family's dysfunction would be public record. Wait! My father made one last desperate attempt. The business! Morgan, you're still part of the family business. What family business? I asked. Cross Consulting, he announced triumphantly. You're listed as co-owner. Lisa and I exchanged glances. That's my company, I said slowly. I named it Cross Consulting because it's my last name. You have nothing to do with it. But I'm your father. I gave you that name, and I made it worth something, I replied. The unraveling accelerated. Bethany's maid of honor, who'd been suspiciously quiet, suddenly spoke up. Bethany, is it true you charged all the bridesmaid dresses to Morgan's account? She said she didn't mind, Bethany protested. I wasn't even told there were bridesmaid dresses until last week, I said. Let me guess. You got the premium package with alterations and accessories, the maid of honor confirmed. $1,200 each, 6 bridesmaids, $7,200 for ugly dresses, I calculated. That's actually impressive. Jake hung up his phone. The lawyer says fraud is grounds for immediate annulment. Bethany, did you lie about anything else? Any debts I should know about? Bethany's silence was deafening. How much? Jake asked, his voice deadly quiet. $90,000. She whispered. Used Morgan's information for the loans. The entire hall gasped. Even I hadn't known it was that bad. You committed identity theft? Lisa's eyes lit up like a prosecutor who'd just been handed a gift. That's federal. That's serious time. I was going to pay it back, Bethany wailed, once the businesses took off. Which businesses? Jake demanded. The ones that don't exist? The wedding cake chose that moment to collapse completely. The styrofoam tiers tumbled, revealing the elaborate support structure inside. Metal rods and plastic spacers, all facade, no substance. It was the perfect metaphor for Bethany's entire life. Alexander's phone buzzed. He showed me the screen. Local news wants a statement. They're calling it the Penthouse wedding scandal. Catchy. Tell them no comment, I said. Let my family deal with the attention they clearly wanted. My father, seeing his last hope disappearing, actually got on his knees. "Morgan, please, we're sorry. We'll pay it back. Every penny." "With what?" I asked. "The fake Rolexes? The house you don't own? Or were you planning to steal from someone else?" "We'll get jobs," my mother offered weakly. "You're 70 years old," I pointed out. "You haven't worked in 40 years. "What jobs?" "We could work for you," she suggested hopefully. "Doing what? Stealing from other employees?" The brutal honesty was necessary, but it still hurt. These were my parents, the people who were supposed to protect me, support me, love me unconditionally. Instead, they'd seen me as a resource to be exploited. "I have a question," Jake said suddenly. "The prenup Bethany insisted on, the one protecting her vast assets, that's meaningless now, right?" Lisa grinned like a shark. "Completely meaningless. In fact, if you wanted to, you could probably sue for fraud. She made you sign under false pretenses." "I wouldn't get anything, though," Jake pointed out. "She has nothing." "She has debt," Lisa corrected, "which, without that prenup, you might be partially responsible for." Jake went pale. "I need a better lawyer." The reception hall had turned into a war zone of emotions. Half the guests were still filming. The other half were gossiping in shocked whispers. The catering staff had given up all pretense of working and were watching like it was dinner theater. "Attention, everyone!" Bethany grabbed the microphone one final time. "The reception is canceled. Get out, all of you." "You can't cancel a reception people already paid for," the venue manager said, appearing like magic. "Speaking of which, the final payment is due." "Morgan will pay," my father said automatically. "Morgan will not pay," I corrected. "Morgan is done paying." "Then who's paying?" the manager asked, pulling out an IPAD. "The balance is $32,000. Everyone looked at Bethany. She looked at Jake. Jake looked at his phone. "I'm not even legally married to her yet," Jake said. "The marriage license hasn't been filed." "It was filed this morning," the officiant piped up helpfully. "I always file them immediately to avoid forgetting." Jake made a sound like a wounded animal. Alexander stood up, pulling out a business card. "Send the bill to my company. Consider it a signing bonus expense," he told me. "No one should have to pay for their own ambush." "I can't accept that," I protested. "You're not accepting anything. I'm protecting my investment. You're no good to me if you're dealing with collection agencies because your family stiffed the venue." The venue manager took the card gratefully and scurried away. Smart man. He knew to take the money and run. Aunt Martha stood up, swaying slightly but determined. "Before I go, I have something to say. Richard, you're a parasite. Gloria, you're an enabler. Bethany, you're a cautionary tale. And Morgan?" She raised her mojito glass. "You're free, baby girl. Finally free." The toast was unexpected, but others joined in. Lisa raised her champagne. The photographer raised his camera. Even some of the catering staff raised their water glasses. It was bizarre and beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. "This is insane," Bethany said, looking around at the ruins of her wedding. "This was supposed to be my perfect day." "Perfect things don't exist," I told her. "That's why you keep failing. You're so obsessed with the image of perfection that you never put in the work to achieve anything real." "Easy for you to say," she shot back. "Everything comes easy to you." Alexander laughed at that. "Your sister works 18-hour days. She graduated summa cum laude while working full-time. She built a consulting firm from nothing. What part of that sounds easy?" "The part where she succeeded," Bethany cried. "Success isn't magic," I said tiredly. "It's just work. Boring, unglamorous, exhausting work. But you never wanted to hear that?" My father stood up, his fake dignity wrapped around him like a cheap coat. "We're leaving." "Come on, Gloria." My mother hesitated. "Morgan, despite everything, you're still our daughter." "No," I said firmly. "I'm someone you happened to give birth to. There's a difference." They left, my father's fake Rolexes catching the light. One last time. Bethany ran after them, her wedding dress train dragging behind her, covered in cake and broken dreams. Jake stayed seated, still on the phone with lawyers. The remaining guests started to leave, murmuring amongst themselves. This would be the wedding they'd talk about for years, the one where everything fell apart in the most spectacular way possible. Lisa sat down beside me. "You okay?" "I'm homeless," I laughed. My parents stole my home and my sister tried to take everything else. How's that for okay? You're not homeless, Alexander said. Corporate housing, remember? Corner unit, full amenities, doorman who actually checks IDs. He smiled. Consider it an upgrade from family management. Why are you doing this? I asked him. Really, not the business reason. The real reason. He was quiet for a moment. Because I know what it's like to have families see you as a resource instead of a person. My father tried to sell my company out from under me once, said it was for the family's benefit. He shrugged. Sometimes the best family is the one you choose, not the one you're born into. Aunt Martha, who'd been gathering her things, stopped by our table. Morgan, honey, I've got something for you. She pulled out a flash drive. Every family gathering for the past 10 years. Videos, photos, recordings, everything showing how they treated you versus how they treated Bethany. Call it insurance. Why? I asked, touched. Because someone needed to witness it, she said simply. Someone needed to see what they were doing to you. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. She left, weaving slightly, but with her dignity intact. The band was packing up their instruments. The catering staff was clearing tables. The photographer finally lowered his camera. Ms. Cross? He said, approaching our table. I know this is awkward, but would you mind if I use this footage for my portfolio? And with your permission, of course. Make me look good, and you've got a deal, I said. You already look good, he replied. You're the only one who didn't lie today. 6 months later, I stood in my new office. Corner suite, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view that made my old penthouse look pedestrian. The nameplate on my door read, Morgan Cross, Chief Technology Officer. Alexander had been right about the job being an upgrade in every way. The penthouse situation had been resolved with surgical precision. Alexander's legal team recovered $60,000 of the stolen rent money. The other $30,000 was gone, spent on God knows what. The forged documents led to charges that my father was still fighting in court. He'd avoided jail time so far, but his reputation was destroyed. The fake Rolexes had been sold to pay for lawyers. My mother had gotten a job as a receptionist at a dental office. The last I'd heard, she was living in a studio apartment on the wrong side of town, the kind where you could hear your neighbor's TV through the walls. She'd sent me a letter, an actual paper letter, asking for forgiveness. I hadn't replied. Forgiveness would come when I was ready, not when she needed it. Bethany's story was the most surprising. After Jake's annulment was granted, record time apparently, given the fraud, she'd hit rock bottom. The identity theft charges were dropped when I refused to prosecute, but the credit damage was done. Lost the apartment she couldn't afford, had her car repossessed, even had to sell her wedding dress to a consignment shop. Then something unexpected happened. She got a job, a real job as a junior social media manager for a small company. The pay was terrible, the hours were long, and for the first time in her life, she was actually working. She'd texted me last week. I get it now. The exhaustion, the ramen dinners, the satisfaction of earning something. I'm sorry. I hadn't replied to her either, but I'd heard from Jake that she was sticking with it. 3 months in and she hadn't quit or tried to scam anyone. Maybe there was hope for her yet? Jake and I had become unlikely friends. He dodged the debt bullet. The annulment protected him from Bethany's loans since they were fraudulent. He'd started his own practice, free from the debt he'd thought he was inheriting. We grabbed coffee once a month, comparing notes on surviving the cross-family chaos. He was dating a pediatrician now, someone who actually was what she claimed to be. You saved my life, he'd told me last week. If that wedding hadn't exploded, I'd have spent years trapped in Bethany's fantasy world. Alexander knocked on my office door. Ready for the board meeting? Almost, I said, turning from the window. You know my father's been calling the office? I heard. He's also been telling people I stole you from the family business. The business that never existed? That's the one. He smiled. Your Aunt Martha called too. She wanted to know if you're coming to Christmas. Am I? That's up to you. Though she did mention she's banned your parents and Bethany from her house until they can prove they've been employed for a full year. I laughed. Vintage Aunt Martha. She also said to tell you she's proud of you, and that your grandfather would be too. My grandfather had passed 3 months ago, peacefully in his sleep. He'd left me another inheritance, one my parents couldn't touch. But more importantly, he'd left me a letter. My dear Morgan, it had read. I watched you build yourself into something remarkable, despite my son's best efforts to tear you down. Never doubt that you earned every bit of your success. The money I'm leaving you is just money. The strength you've shown is the real inheritance. Use both wisely. I'd framed the letter. It sat on my desk next to a photo from the wedding, the one where I'm signing the contract while Bethany melts down in the background. The photographer had titled it Rise and Fall when he'd won an award for the series. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Morgan, this is Mom. I wanted you to know I've been seeing a therapist. She says I enabled a toxic dynamic. I'm working on understanding why. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. Maybe someday I'd be ready to engage. Today wasn't that day. "You ready?" Alexander asked again. "Yeah," I said, grabbing my laptop. "Let's go make some money." As we walked to the boardroom, I thought about that wedding 6 months ago. The disaster that had felt like the end of everything had actually been the beginning of my real life, the one where I wasn't subsidizing anyone else's dreams at the expense of my own. My family had wanted me to give my sister my penthouse as a wedding gift. Instead, I'd given myself something much more valuable: freedom. The penthouse had sold last month to a tech executive who actually could afford it. I'd bought something smaller but entirely mine, with no bad memories attached. The security system was state-of-the-art, and the doorman had specific instructions about who was never allowed inside. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered if my family was okay. Then I remembered that they'd never wondered the same about me when they were stealing my money, my home, my peace of mind. The guilt would creep in occasionally, whispering that family should forgive, family should support, family should sacrifice. But then I'd remember Aunt Martha's words from the wedding. Family shouldn't need contracts to not steal from each other. She was right. And for the first time in my 29 years, I was free from contracts I'd never signed, debts I'd never incurred, and obligations I'd never agreed to. My phone rang. Bethany's number. For once, I answered. "Hello? Morgan? It's me. I wanted to tell you I got promoted. Junior to regular social media manager. It's still not much, but it's mine. I earned it." "Good for you," I said, and meant it. I also wanted to say what Dad did with the penthouse and the fraud and everything. I didn't know about the loans or the forged power of attorney. I only knew about the announcement plan. "I'm sorry." "I know," I said. "Do you think, could we maybe get coffee sometime?" "Not now. I know it's too soon. But maybe someday?" I thought about it. Maybe someday. "That's more than I deserve," she said quietly. "Thank you." After she hung up, Alexander looked at me. "You okay?" "You know what? I actually am." The boardroom was full of executives waiting for my presentation. 6 months ago, I'd been standing in an eggplant bridesmaid dress while my family tried to steal my life. Now I was running a division of a Fortune 500 company. The moral of the story was simple, really. When family treats you like a bank, sometimes you need to close the account. And sometimes, just sometimes, the withdrawal of your presence is worth more than any deposit you ever made. As I began my presentation, I thought about that stranger who'd stood up in the wedding hall, Alexander, who'd become my mentor and friend. He'd said, "Touch your assets again and you'll lose yours." He'd been right. They'd touched my assets and they'd lost everything. And me, I'd gained the whole world.